Welcome back, guys. I had some really awesome feedback, and a lot of people reach out that the last bump reading video was a hit. So I figured I would grab some footage and do it again. We're getting our first north wind of the season here, and hopefully much more to come. We have a good 15 to 18 knots of north wind here in this video, and have been blowing for about 3.5, 4 hours. I'm on my trusty Code 980S with the short fuse, the 150 AR tail, and my 80 centimeter plus mast. And as you can see, there are some nice surfy lines offshore here. So we'll get right to the breakdown. After talking with some of our local crew, I'm going to focus on finding moments where there's decisions to be made and talking through the thought process that's happening instantly in those decisions. Here's our first decision moment. This is a classic wormhole setup. It's easy to identify because you'll see what look like mismatched bumps in front of you with a good face, two bumps in front of you. Another good sign is right where this arrow is, you can see sort of a diagonal bump that almost looks like a gap between the two peaks to your right and left, with this further peak in the center in front of you. The best way to approach this is to accelerate forward, aiming for the gap between the two peaks, and you should feel like you come up on the mast and just rocket forward, as you can see I'm doing right here. As we kick off this bump with all this speed, we've found ourselves in a little bit of a bump desert. No great options immediately available. Best thing to do in this moment is take a breath, breathe, rely on your pumping, and identify where your next opportunity will fall. You can see here I've highlighted the three underlying ground swells. The furthest one in front of us is far too far away to catch. The middle one's just right, and the back one would involve pumping upwind to get to. So we'll fade in behind the middle one and let the section develop. This, of course, isn't for free, and we have to add a couple pumps, but we are rewarded for our patience with a great section lining up in front of us. Couple fun turns here, and then we find ourselves at our next decision. Here, there's a small wormhole, and if I were taking a more racing line, you could get to this bump, but it would be an awful lot of work, and in the surfy mood I'm in, I was not feeling it. Instead, I choose to fade to the bump behind. You can see this A-frame standing up here. The best way to treat these is almost like a power boost. If you can execute your turn in the right spot, you will end up on top of the bump with lots of downhill to go and really accelerate very quickly. Here we find a nice bump to wrap into, and don't be afraid when you're coasting and you have glide to just chill out and let the next opportunity develop. You can see our next little wormhole opening up in front of us, and definitely some work needed to get over this bump and get into the next one. But oh my goodness, did we earn some turns on this one. A long line laid out in front of me, and this is what I downwind for, these moments right here. This is like waist deep powder snowboarding. Absolutely incredible. A couple taps to get over this next bump, and then even more of a line sitting up in front of me. Absolutely incredible stuff. Always love the opportunity in a northerly to get on a little runner and get some distance offshore for free. This is an interesting case here. You can see these three bumps that I've chosen to highlight. The immediate thought is to turn right for this first bump right here, but I see how steep the third bump is all the way to my left, and I choose to fade into the gap between the two, which ends up setting me up very well for this next section right here. So it can always be a good rule of thumb that if you're unsure on what to do, head for height and get high on the foil and get high on top of a piece of energy, because there should always be somewhere to go downhill after that. This section is a little chopped up, but again, you got to just focus on trying to see the underlying energy that's hidden underneath all of the cross chop. That's what's going to carry you through the next section. A little bit of work to jump through this wormhole and hop onto this next bump, and then we're left with our next decision. You can see between these three bumps here, we have an option to fade left and stack between those two bumps, or fade right, go up and over, and fade into this next front bump. I choose to go right purely just because of the steepness, and I see to my right that there is a good section opening up, which, as you can see, definitely works out. If you are setting yourself up correctly and the conditions are good, you should feel like you're almost perpetually falling downhill. Here I get caught up with what I would call some speed bumps in front of me. They're small bumps that you could go up and over, but you'll use a lot of energy to do it. So you want to identify which is the path of least resistance around these speed bumps. The right looks like a little wormhole, but again, because there's two speed bumps, even if you get through that wormhole, there won't be too much energy in front of it. So I choose to fade left to go around the obstacle. This doesn't set me up for any particularly good ride, but I leave with speed to burn, and I'm able to calmly, be patiently wait for a new bump to develop in front of me. That bump comes, and I am able to even get a couple turns in before I fade left to keep working out to sea. Here I'm left with an interesting option. I can fade right away onto a small bump, but the prospects don't look good if I continue down that path. So I take some evasive action and pull hard left, fading behind to drop into this nice trough. Once again, I use the peak of this trough as a speed boost and see a nice line open up in front of me as it doubles up. Get a couple super fun cruisy turns in here before a quick up and over and into another solid section. I am then met with a bit of an interesting choice. I can continue straight for two challenging up and overs, which would be the racing line, or I can fade left behind this steeper bump and find a small pocket to wait while this bump redevelops. That evasive action to the left has rewarded me with yet another clean face, and I get a couple more turns in. That's all I got for this video as far as breakdowns, but I'll leave a couple minutes of raw footage on the back end if you want to see these decisions happen in real time without the breakdowns. Thanks again, everyone who's been watching and following along, and please consider giving me a quick subscribe if you've been enjoying them. These take quite a bit of time to make and are pretty tedious, but I've been loving how you guys are getting something out of them. Thanks again.